On the occasion of World Obesity Day, let's talk obesity and raise awareness. 73% urban India are overweight. Almost half of them are going towards obesity. 3 out of 4 Indians are overweight, and women are more prone to obesity. Isn't this alarming? Obesity is traditionally defined as a weight at least 20% above the weights corresponding to the lowest death rate for individuals of a specific height, gender, and age. 20 to 40% over ideal weight is considered mildly obese, 40 to 100% over ideal weight is considered moderately obese, 100% over ideal weight is considered severely or morbidly obese. When we want to classify obesity in simple terms, let's classify them as type 1 and type 2. Type 1 obesity is not caused by a disease, and in most cases, it is caused by excessive eating habit and lack of exercise. Type 1 obesity can be treated with general obesity treatment methods like simultaneous dietetic treatment and exercise regimes. Type 2 obesity accounts for less than 1% of obesity causes and is caused by a disease. Abnormal weight gain occur with type 2 obesity even when little is eaten. Cushing syndrome, hypothyroidism, PCOD are some of its examples. Causes of obesity could be genetics. Genes play a role in the regulation of the energy available to the body from the foods consumed. However, obesity is a result of both genetic and environmental interactions. Genetic factors contribute to about 6 to 85% of obesity among populations according to studies. When we look at the dietary aspect, the WHO has recognized the causes of the worldwide development of overweight and obesity as an increased intake of low nutrient dense food and reduced physical activity attributed to the inactive lifestyle patterns and urbanization. Physical activity, similarly to high energy intake, chronic low energy expenditure has the potential to produce a long-term positive energy balance and consequent weight gain. Energy expenditure is a function of BMR, thermogenesis, and physical activity. When we look at medical conditions, for example, thyroid disease, due to thyroid underactivity, BMR is reduced, potentially predisposing an individual to positive energy balance and weight gain. Studies have reported that 60% of patients with hypothyroid reported weight gain. Adrenocortical disease, hypocortisolism, or Cushing syndrome may lead to obesity. It results from the excessive corticosteroid secretions from the adrenal gland. Cortisol is an appetite stimulant, and this is the main contributor to obesity in Cushing syndrome. It is characterized by hypertension, osteoporosis, carbohydrate intolerance, thin skin, and a particular pattern of fat distribution that helps distinguish it. Gonadal disease. Hypogonadism has been associated with obesity. Testosterone is an anabolic steroid and alters metabolism by increasing the proportion of lean body mass relative to fat. Deficiency of testosterone or luteinizing hormone or follicular stimulating hormone due to pituitary insufficiency or hypothalamic failure can lead to obesity in adolescents. When we look at PCOD, this is a condition prevalent in about 5 to 10% of young women, out of which around 50% are overweight and obese. Eating disorders, binge eating disorder and night eating syndrome are associated with obesity. Night eating syndrome is a condition where 50% of an individual's daily caloric intake is after 7 p.m. Secondary to chronic diseases are obesity may occur in children with chronic diseases who are required to be inactive, or it may occur in those who receive steroids for lengthy period. A dramatic example of the mechanical problems that can occur with obesity is seen in youngsters with myelomeningocele, that not only are these patients inactive due to muscular weakness or paralysis of their lower extremities, but often they receive excessive caloric intake through overprotective feeding or eating from frustration. Apart from all these, environmental factors. Several environment factors play an important role in influencing the choices people make about their health and lifestyle. These factors may include unavailability of sidewalks, places for recreation, lack of time to indulge in physical activity due to long working hours, lack of availability of health foods, and marketing of high caloric foods. The food preferences of parents also have a role to play in the children's food choices. As a result, it is necessary to set up favorable surroundings that may help individuals to choose healthy alternatives. These are all coming out of studies. Physiological status as well. To say that overall overweight and obese persons have psychological problems is incorrect, but to deny the role of psychological factors in the etiology of obesity would be even more so. Psychological research has been concerned with the relationship between behavioral, cognitive, and emotional processes. When we look at appetite and satiety disorders, there are a plethora of studies on eating behavior in the obese, suggesting that obese people ate too fast, did not display normal satiety patterns such as progressive slowing of feeding rate over the course of a meal, or were too responsive to taste and smell. Body image dissatisfaction also could play a role. The concept of body image plays an important role in the classification and hence in the etiology of obesity. Body image refers to one's physical, emotional, and interpersonal view of oneself. It is an internal model that has physical and emotional components. Food addiction. The concept of food addiction is often associated with obese and overweight individuals in lay circles. However, it is little empirical support from scientific literature. Wortman proposed that some obese people are carbohydrate lovers and they craved and binged on sweets. In such people, it was proposed that carbohydrate craving was a result of a neurochemical deficit, which ultimately leads to weight gain. Now let's come to the consequences of obesity, which can debilitate one. It can be even linked to mortality and many chronic ailments. And which are the systems which get affected? And if we look into the various systems, let's look at cardiovascular system, and the comorbidities which will include hypertension, hyperlipidemia, long QT syndrome, arterial fibrillation. When we look at pulmonary system, we have reactive airway disease, obstructive sleep apnea, restrictive lung disease. When we look at musculoskeletal, it can will lead to debilitating osteoarthritis, chronic low back pain, and immobility. Psychological could be binge eating disorder, depression, body dysmorphic disorder. Dermatologic system, you look at intertrigo, venous status, acanthosis nigricans. When we look at endocrine system, diabetes mellitus, hypoandrogenemia, metabolic syndrome, polycystic ovarian disease. When we look at genitourinary, we have ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, breast cancer, renal cell cancer, dysfunctional uterine bleeding. When we look at gastrointestinal, we have irritable bowel syndrome, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, gastroesophageal reflux, esophageal cancer, colon cancer. And when you look at the neurologic system, we have ischemic stroke, neuralgia, paresthetica. Just remember that these are the various things which will be happening in our body. Critical periods for development of overweight and obesity. What are the various age groups that can lead to this kind of a problem? So, gestational period. Maternal obesity and high rates of gestational weight gain tend to produce larger, fatter babies. Marriage et al. Found positive relationships between maternal weight and infant birth weight. In childhood, the tendency for indicators for adiposity such as body mass index to fall around the age of 1 year and then increase again by around 6 years is referred to as adiposity rebound. It is now evident that earlier the rebound, the greater the risk of subsequent obesity. In adolescence, the most important predictor of adult obesity appears to be adolescent weight and changes in body mass index during this particular time. The older a child is, when he or she remains overweight, the greater the likelihood that overweight will remain in adulthood. How can we assess, or what are the assessment methods for obesity? There are many, but here we cannot take all of them, but the most commonly used systems are DEXA and bioelectrical impedance. But if these are not possible for us to get hold of, anthrometry is our only thing. And in the anthrometry, we have skin fold techniques which can give us a very good idea about our fat percentage. Apart from that, in the newer methodologies in anthrometry would be, there are some field studies which have been done where neck circumference has become a good marker of estimating obesity and even foot length. So let's come to treatment of obesity. Different modalities of treating obesity are lifestyle modification, dietary modification, and exercise. Now, since most of us know about this, let's talk about the ones which are not very common, which are pharmaceutical management, surgical procedures, and combined therapy. When we talk about pharmaceutical management, addition of these drugs to a diet and exercise program help by causing energy deficit through a number of mechanisms, including acting on the brain, to suppressing appetite, producing bulk to fill the stomach, thereby suppressing appetite, possibly increasing thermogenesis, increasing metabolism, and selectively interfering with fat absorption. These medications have side effects, thus benefits and risks must be weighed carefully for each individual. Just to give you an example, Orlistat is very commonly used. Surgical procedures. This treatment is preferably reserved for those with very high morbid rates. Various surgical procedures have been used to decrease the amount of food entering or being absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract. These include esophageal banding, gastric restrictive surgery, jejunal ileal bypass, and bariatric surgery. Coming to the last one is combined therapy. The combined efforts of diet therapy, exercise therapy, and behavior therapy provide the best results in weight loss treatments, and many studies and even randomized clinical trials for 2 years have concluded that that they have got a very good result. For at least 10% of the weight loss was observed among the participants. So I again urge the nutrition and dietetic community that we have a very important role to play in our community to eradicate this particular problem, which seems to be emerging like anything, and entire nutritionists and the dietitians present here have a very important role to play in trying to solve this problem. Thank you very much.